Well, hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to another edition of White Sox Daily Life. My name is Ian Eskridge. I am here with my co-host, the Danny Miller. How you doing, Danny?
Doing well. Again, just like last week, I'm gonna go ahead and say it again this week. I spent a lot of time out at the campground doing my thing and not paying a whole lot of attention to the White Sox. So it seems to be keeping me sane. I'm not gonna lie. I come here to do these shows with you and our guests so that I can stay abreast of what's going on in the world of the White Sox these days. That and White Sox Twitter kind of keeps me going, as we spoke a little bit pre-show about. But yeah, man. Breaking news here on White Sox Daily Life: the White Sox still suck.
Oh, I'm shocked. You know, things
So,
are things are crazy. Yeah, they got
how you
swept
doing,
again.
man?
I'm doing all right. I like I've said numerous times in the past, if it wasn't for the minor league teams, I'd go insane. Because at least there I can rejoice in personal achievements by some of the minor league guys, and because this team is real tough to watch. Somebody else that
Agreed.
watches the White Sox and comments on them and has a podcast is our friend Nick Murawski. I'm going to go ahead and bring him into the fold here. Hey, Nick,
Boom.
how you doing?
Guys, it's really a treat to talk with you. It really is. This is going to be some therapy. We're going to just try to sort some things out. Probably won't come to any answers. But yeah, I'm still watching this team like my life depends on it. And it is, seriously, my health has been affected. I think, things have suffered, but at least I've witnessed this. I have living proof of how bad this has been. I saw it with my own eyes, whether it's in person or on TV. From time to time, I'll catch the ESPN 1000, on the radio, but it's ugly. It's absolutely ugly, and yeah, hopefully we could sort some things out here tonight.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, having said that you're watching religiously and your health is taking a toll, or it's taking a toll on your health, I should say. I'm sorry, I just haven't had the stomach lately. My mental health has been severely depreciated over the last few months here, and I don't have the stomach for it, man. I really don't. So I'm glad somebody out there does. Call me a bad fan if you will, but I just can't do it these days. I'm much
I
happier
mean,
without.
honestly, if I didn't have commitments to Locked On Sox, let's just call it like that, I wouldn't be. Because I'd be able to catch up and probably put things together, for Good Guys Talk Back, but doing daily content and really trying to be on top of it and give it a perspective on everything, from a play, from a managerial decision to lineups, whatever. I feel like I have to, and that's just me. That's like my personality. Where if I'm going to do something, man, I got to just absolutely be all in. And it's becoming to a point where I just don't know how I'm going to get through this season. I really don't.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, let me ask you this: if you were to put a marker somewhere on where exactly this season went sideways, where would you put it?
Oh man, in season, well, in season, it was the 7-21 start, and if you want to go within that, I guess I'd have to really go back and revisit, but playing with a sense of urgency and being prepared for games and execution and all that kind of stuff. That was what was supposed to happen, right? That was the big thing heading into the season from Camelback Ranch, and it didn't seem that way at all. They were flat. Obviously, some injuries played a role. Lack of returning to accustomed levels or any levels. That right there is what completely hampered this ball club, and they've never really gone on a run. I mean, I don't even know what, I can't remember. Was it 2 series in a row, 3 series in a row, something like that? That's not a run. So to dig yourself out of that, while other teams are not stopping and waiting for the poor little White Sox to catch up, they're continuing to play. And it's not like anybody was burying the Sox. They did it on their own. This division has been so forgiving. I think I would have to put it there. However, if you want to really go back, into the offseason, we can do that. Of course, you can go further back, but, and I don't want to kick him while he's down, and it's easy to kick him when he's down, but the Grifol hire wasn't the right hire if you felt like this team was truly ready to contend for not only division, but beyond.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I would even go as far back as, several months before the season started with the roster construction. I am of the personal opinion that, Oscar Colas should have been given the right field position. And I know that some people thought that the White Sox should have signed some sort of a stopgap right fielder of some sort. And, they did send him down, but it was in true normal White Sox fashion, where he was getting starts, and then all of a sudden, he was platooning. And, I guess not all of a sudden, but, he was platooning. And so he wasn't getting a lot of starts. And, he struggled with having off days and never really seemed to get his bearings. And I know that, he has a propensity to chase pitches and whatever. But, then they send him down for, a month. And we've seen him in AAA. And, because they had him working on his pitch selectivity, I think that really hampered his success when he went down there. And, I don't know, the whole minor leaguer, call-up system with the White Sox drives me up a wall, because it's like they don't let anybody get their footing before they send them down, It's like, here's 4 at-bats today. Now you're going to sit for 2 days. Now you get another, 4 at-bats, and then you've got a day off, and then we're going to pinch hit you in the 5th inning, and you're going to get 2 at-bats, and then you're going to sit for another day. It's just like, this stuff just drives me nuts, and it's like, they can't commit.
Well, yeah, I think you're giving
the Sox. Go ahead, Danny.
I apologize, but I think you're giving the Sox a lot of credit for saying you're going to get 4 at-bats today, because that means other people have to get on base for you to make it through the lineup that many times to get that 4th at-bat. But I digress. Please go ahead and continue with what you were going to say, Nick.
No, I mean, the Colas thing is, you're right. You made that decision in the offseason. You pushed Colas, like, this guy, you're going to want this guy. He's going to be a beast. He's our right fielder. Okay, you made that decision, and he had a nice spring. Okay, it's not like anybody was really terribly shocked, because he did well. He didn't hurt himself, I should say, in Cactus League play. So he won that position. So just play him, commit to him, because he wasn't going to carry this White Sox team. But since nobody else was carrying this team offensively, everyone was struggling. Well, his shortcomings really were magnified. And it's like, well, then let's send this guy down, because he clearly can't figure it out. He wasn't supposed to figure it out that early. Let him go out there and scuffle. Somebody put their arm around him and say, it's going to be rough this year, but we believe in you. You're the person for the job. And, sending him down and then bringing him back up like they did. And then Grifol's comments about, we need him more of an 8, not a 10. Let him play. Let him play and figure it out. Stop that. And don't put it in the media like that either. That to me is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, kind of my feelings on the whole thing is, like when you saw Zach Remillard, he came up and had a good game right off the bat, and then you can't get him out of the lineup. but because Oscar Colas didn't do that right off the bat, he goes on the back burner. And I mean, we're still running Gavin Sheets out in right field. I know he's your buddy, but we're still running Gavin Sheets out in right field, and the guy's batting 200, and yet he's a priority because he hit a dozen home runs last year or whatever. I mean, is that really what we're prioritizing?
Ian, he's a son of a Major League Baseball player. Don't you forget it. He knows what he's doing. And he worked hard this offseason to get better defensively, and he knew where his growing edges were. So, he's owed it. That is such a ridiculous thing. They really they embraced that whole Gavin Sheets thing like he was irreplaceable. Like they couldn't do any better. And the decision making, it just kind of cancels out other decision making that they made, and it really is a mess right now.
Left-handed power bat.
Well, and that's the thing. I'd heard early this season, or even going back into the offseason, some people were saying that Gavin Sheets was, Daniel B. Polka 2.0. And I'm going, well, if that's the case, where are the concourse shots? Where did those go? Because we're not even seeing that out of Gavin this year. We've seen a handful of home runs, but most of them are wall scrapers. And I'm just kind of curious as if all this focus that Nick speaks about on his defensive improvements has taken away from his ability to hit the ball. So I don't really know, but I can't agree more that Oscar Colas probably should have been given every opportunity to not only have the position but to grow throughout the season and continue to do things that would develop him. We talk about development a lot with this White Sox team and the things that they do or don't do very well. And it just seems like they're doing everything they can to hinder some of these young guys. And when you're taking the bat out of their hands, especially a guy like Oscar Colas, who sure he had that chase right that you talked about, but the guy was mashing. He's really hitting the ball hard down in double and triple A, and he makes his way up, and then they kind of just sit him down and say, you know what? We don't like the way you started, so take a back seat. Doesn't make any sense to me.
And Danny, and everybody else chases. The Sox team does not get on base. They do not see pitches. Their chase rate is ridiculous compared to the rest of the Major League Baseball. You watch some of these games, and Jason Benintendi, after every the start of every game, he will say, "Well, this team," and for example, is the New York Mets just last week. They are a very patient team. Every team we face seems to be a very patient team against what we have as a group. So if Oscar Colas is chasing, well, so is Jake Berger, so was Luis Robert Jr. at times, so is everybody else in this lineup. And the stubbornness from Pedro Grifol of not moving TA out of the top spot and then finally moved him to the second spot, which was a ridiculous place to keep him there with his metrics, and so that to me is like, well, I get it. They maybe have earned that opportunity to try to figure it out where Oscar Colas is a rookie, but that was your plan at the beginning of the year. That is who you said won that position. You didn't have any other backup, and don't tell me Gavin Sheets is a backup. So you know what? I'm sorry no one else is hitting in this lineup to hide what Oscar Colas is doing. You guys, you have to wear it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I will throw this out there. Gavin Sheets, when he was brought into the organization, was known as a bat-to-ball guy, not as a power guy. And
Right.
so the misnomer that he is a left-handed power bat, yes, he'll run into some because he is a large man and he does have decent bat speed. But the thing about him always was that he would always carry a 290 to 310 average and hit, get on base a lot. And he's, I would assume that probably part of the problem with his, bat to ball skills is he is in the major leagues. So it's hard to hit a baseball in the major leagues. And then 2, he's trying to impact the baseball and send it far and hit it hard wherever it's going to go instead of, trying to get on base. And that's part of the issue here, is that they're trying to make him into a power hitting left-handed bat when that's not necessarily what his skill set provides. He's kind of forcing it, and it's costing him. He's robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to say.
Yeah, absolutely. It's things that are happening here in late July. And, Grifol had all these, quotes and things post-game, post this, the Sox getting swept by the Twins, and, how he's not happy and he needs to see that killer mentality, and we need to be playing better baseball, and I want to see this fixed, and, more discipline at the plate. And it's like, guy, this is August 20, July 25th. We're coming up here. And it's hard, like, what are you expecting, to happen at this point? Clearly, people didn't buy into your methods, your coaching staff's methods, and whatever was worked on in the offseason and was supposed to be put in from Camelback Ranch to Houston and beyond, or they're just not able to do it, or they don't want to listen to Pedro Grifol and they're going to do it their way. I don't know what it is, but it's the same stuff over and over that has been going on. And, I drank the Kool-Aid. I really did, on Pedro Grifol and how things were going to go this season. And that's on me, and that's on everybody, I guess.
Yeah, I was right there with you when you talk about drinking the Kool-Aid. It sounded like when he interviewed for the job that he said all the right things.
Sure.
He was a man that wore many hats and had been in many different positions in baseball, and kind of had an understanding of, some of the things that we as White Sox fans have been kind of wanting for our organization when it came to, strength and conditioning, and being more analytically driven and using tech to, further those types of departments that the White Sox had kind of been lacking in. And you get these things from Pedro, and we get into the season, and it just doesn't seem like any of it really came to fruition whatsoever. So my question to you, Nick, is this is something that he and I talked about last week, and I kind of brought up the fact that, do you think that there's a possibility that maybe some of the dissension amongst these players the last couple of seasons that we had maybe heard was, we don't know for sure if that's what, was going on, but we've heard about cliques, in the locker room, and guys not necessarily meshing, in a team that's been touted as being, possible contenders, and on paper they're supposed to be so good. And after going through these past couple seasons where the struggles have been, mighty, do you think there's a kind of disconnect among some of the veterans that really just maybe don't want to be here, and they're kind of having a negative influence on some of the other guys in the clubhouse? What are your thoughts on that kind of thing?
I think that's very plausible. I think there was some stuff that came out maybe over a month ago, and it was from Bob Nightingale, and I tongue-in-cheek call him the White Sox whisperer, because it just seems like he sometimes has, he's a mouthpiece for Jerry, and, but he mentioned something that, like, there could be veterans that are talking to the front office saying almost, I want out. If there's an opportunity, I'm absolutely able and willing to go. Yeah, we've seen teams over the years, whether it's with the White Sox, in baseball, or other sports. On paper, wow, you've got talent. The chemistry is lacking, and there's a lot of quotes on that from managers' perspectives, from owners, from general managers, from players. It's got to click, right? It's got to all come together. And if there are disconnects in between veterans and younger guys, and even pockets within that, and a first-year manager, just can't command the respect of these players, and they're not willing to listen and say, who are you, from the Kansas City Royals? I've got to worry about my brand and what I've got going on in my world. I've made my money already. I cashed out. I made my money big time early on. I got paid by the Sox already. I'm thinking about other things beyond this organization. That's a problem, man. Gosh, is that a big problem behind the curtains? And you can only just speculate. So that's when people like just flippantly say, blow it up, tear this whole thing down. I mean, it's like, well, if the guts of this, if there's cancer in this, and there are just things that no matter how much talent you have, they are not going to go to bat for one another. They are not clicking. They are not playing as one. They are not a cohesive group. Well, then no matter how much talent you have, you've got to start fresh somehow. You've got to get rid of this stuff that isn't working, that's not linking together. And, I thought, Rick Hahn, who tries to be smarter than everybody else at times, I think he thinks he's the smartest man in the room always, the most clever. I think he thought he was going to outsmart everybody and pick Pedro Grifol. I'll show you. You're going to let me pick a manager? I will show you. Watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this guy, and it's going to work, and I'm going to, prove to everybody what I can do as a GM. And that was not the case.
That was not the case, narrator voice. I don't necessarily dislike Pedro, and I don't necessarily think that what he's trying to do is not what this team needs. And I've heard people talking, that Luis Robert was slow to buy in on what they were trying to do, and that was part of the disconnect with him. And I'm not sure whether that's part of the public benching that supposedly was the thing that kickstarted him. But he seems like a great guy, and like here's the thing that we don't know. We get the stupid quotes. I'm gonna play Eloy for his bat, not his legs. I'm gonna, TA's gonna, at some point he's gonna hit because he's got to, because he works really hard. Like all these quotes that we hear. I don't know what he's like in the clubhouse. I don't know what he's saying to guys in his office when he calls them in for a meeting, if something's not going quite right. Like, I genuinely don't know what's going on there. And it could be one of those things where he's keeping it all out of, the public eye, which is, I would rather him do that, I guess, than throwing guys under the bus publicly.
I get that. That makes sense. I take it as well. The output from the team tells me something, and some of the things that he has said are, I don't know why we're playing like the way we're playing. I don't know why it's not working, and I'm only able to play the cards I'm dealt. Things like that, where it feels to me like he's saying, if you read between the lines, like, I would like a different type of roster. I wish I wasn't stuck with some of these players that I inherited, because it's just not going how I would like to do it. Maybe to your point, Ian, there are others that just weren't buying in, and they were looking at him a little like, really? From the Royals, you're going to tell me how to do this? I don't know. But yeah, we don't know. I go off of like some of the things he said that seem really like he's confused and he doesn't know how to get things to go, and the performance.
Well, I'll ask you this. We're sitting at 41-60, 19 games under 500, 12 games out of first place. It's too late for fixes, too late for pretty much anything, right?
Yeah.
I don't see how you can...
I don't see. What I would look for is who's going to be. We don't know yet who's going to be here for 2024. You have some idea, some guesses. I think everything's on the table. They should be listening on everybody. That doesn't mean you're going to act on it, but you should at least like.
So glad you said that.
At least listen. If some team is desperate enough to just offer the farm. And there are some teams in these conversations, in these trade scenarios, that are top 5 farm systems. And they're saying to themselves, we didn't envision that we were going to be in here. Or the Baltimore Orioles are like, wow, now is our time. I didn't think it was going to be our time. It is. Let's get nuts. You have to listen. You absolutely have to listen. But yeah, we don't know what's going to happen and who's going to be on the roster for next year. And that's where I would look at what's worth watching someone like Michael Kopech, who I don't think is going to be dealt. You never know, but I think he could be very valuable to this rotation in 2024 with what's going to be left after the dust settles. So you look at something like his start. He's going against the Cubs in game one of this mini little crosstown series here. And his other starts, I mean, Jake Berger's going to get an extended look at third base because of what's happening with Moncada, which we still don't really know. And I honestly think he needs to be shut down, but we can probably address that at some point. So nothing I don't think is going to be fixed, but it's, how do these guys respond that maybe are looking to be on this team in 2024?
Well, Yohan Moncada did go 2 for 4 with 2 doubles yesterday, and he did run. So, I mean, that's.
Do you think that's? Do you think it's sustainable though? That's my big worry with this back issue. Like, is it going to flare back up on him because it hasn't been maybe addressed properly, and one little weird, twist or overswing or something, and like you re-aggravated it because it wasn't fully taken care of. I don't know.
Well, that seems to be the White Sox way. We've seen this time and time again where a guy looks like he probably should be shut down. Let's just go ahead and use the old Carlos Rodon example where we watched him pitch through the pain or do a rehab on something that required, well, at least not to the White Sox, it didn't require, but what most of us knew, right? What most of us knew probably required surgical repair. We watched them waste years of their early careers only to be, injured even more and probably worse than they'd ever been before. It just seems to be the way the White Sox do things. We're not going to shut you down. We're paying you too much money. We gave you an early contract extension, or we want you to perform, hoping and praying that you might do something. And if we do still tank, you might have some trade value. I don't really know what the thought is, but obviously the White Sox just have a penchant for letting guys go way too long and not addressing the needs of the player himself.
Yeah, you might be on to something with that, Danny, with the front office being like, whoa, I thought we were going to be not only a couple series wins, but maybe a World Series appearance, definitely a pennant under our belts by now. We can't shut this guy down again, and we can't put this guy on the injured list. Like, we cannot put that product, like, we can't show that. This guy's got to keep grinding. So let's not do that. That very well could be because the lack of success since the fall of 2016.
Well, I mean, we've got
God,
Eloy
2016
should be on the should have been on the IL. We've got Andrew Vaughn walking around in a walking boot, and you can't put him on the IL because he might be fine in a few days. What if he's not? You've been hamstringing your managers with these shorted rosters because you don't want to put anybody on the IL. And it's like I understand that you want to show faith in your players and whatever, and that they're going to, hustle their way back. But if they're not ready, this is something, we've goofed around about it on Twitter, Nick, that, novel response to put somebody on the IL like they do in the minor leagues. And for whatever reason, the parent club doesn't put anybody on the IL. Colson Montgomery can sit on the IL for 2.5 months before he gets a rehab start in Arizona, and then they put him in Winston-Salem, and he's batting .600 in the first week, and they still keep him there, because they want to make sure that he's, ready to go and whatever. Yet, meanwhile,
and during that 2.5 months, there was nary an update about his health. On top of it all, people were going, "What is going on?" We thought this was going to be a short stint, and he was damn near, invisible. And we can't get anything like that in the White Sox, where we get updates on Andrew Vaughn's foot every day and Yohan Moncada's back every day. Yet these guys can't miss any time on the roster at all.
Yeah, I wonder if it really is this sense of urgency, especially this year, of we have to. This was a prove it year for us. We absolutely had to make this work. They were nipping at this AL Central a few weeks ago. They might have been 4 games back, 5, and even then, I think folks that were watching this team regularly and following some of the numbers, the game within the game is like, don't worry too much. Don't focus on that 4 or 5 games back. Like they're just not a very good team, and there's no depth. And but maybe it was that of we got to keep these guys in. We've got to force these guys to continue to play. We have to show something for this season after what we had last year. It's over now.
Well, that's
I mean, it
exactly the thing.
is.
It's over now. So why are we still doing this?
Yep.
Right.
100%.
You're going from push it, make it work, make it happen, and now it's blow the whole damn thing up. And for what? To, maybe shorten the career of some of these guys, or definitely shorten their time on the south side. So, none of it really seems to make a lot of sense to me.
I don't know for, some of them. I know Tim Anderson, I think, was kind of grinding through some stuff. I mean, is it to keep pushing these guys out so they can showcase, so we can maybe have an active trade deadline? I don't know. That's all just speculation.
Well, let's move to that. We've got a week.
Let's talk about that deadline
until the trade deadline. So my question to you, I'm going to give you some guys here, and you tell me who you're trading and who you're keeping and what you think you're going to get back, roughly. I mean, obviously, I'm not talking about prospect names here, but I mean, like, like, are we talking like top 30 prospect of the team? Are we talking top 100 prospect? Just stuff like that. Are we talking about getting bullpen guys back? I don't know. So speaking of Tim Anderson, post All-Star break, 14 of 37 with a 378 batting average and an 871 OPS. You got a $14 million club option on him next year. The White Sox, if they do keep him, will most certainly pick up that option. But do you think he is going to be one of those change of scenery guys that they're going to try and move and give to a contender?
If you're asking me, I think Tim Anderson goes. I think it is a change of scenery. I think just, me being such a conspiracy theorist he's got a lot going on in his life. He's got a lot of personal stuff happening. And I don't know if I think he probably was expecting a contract extension with the things that he has said over the last maybe 6 months or year of how he's wanted to wear a White Sox uniform the rest of his career and all this stuff. And it hasn't happened, which would have been, I guess, maybe early for the Sox to do that when, him still having some time left. But if they really wanted to invest in him, why not? I thought maybe last year, definitely when you go back to the Field of Dreams game, that era, that Tim Anderson could be the first, 9-figure guy in White Sox history. I do not feel that way anymore. There are a lot of teams that are linked to Tim Anderson. I think the LA Dodgers are a great fit for the Chicago White Sox for a lot of different reasons, not just Tim Anderson, but some of the other potential, guys that we might be able to talk about. Tim Anderson alone, I don't think is going to command. I don't think you're going to be blown away, maybe, what you're going to get back right now with how he is playing. Maybe it is a team that says, we think we can keep this guy long term. They're looking at maybe the long play, and we definitely think the change of scenery, maybe even moving him to second base, is the secret sauce. He just, his body language and everything else. And hey, I really thought he was going to be the face of the franchise. I really thought that they were going to lock this guy up. And I get a feeling like he's going to be someone that maybe he's even talked to the organization and said, hey, if you got a chance, if there's something, I'm willing to go. I'm not going to put up, any issues or anything. So yeah, I could see him wearing a different uniform.
What do you think, Danny? You pretty much there as well?
Yeah, you and I spoke about this a little bit already. I am kind of in agreement with Nick here where, some of the distractions off the field for Tim, we all know they're out there. And they're not any kind of secret. I don't want to speculate on how deep they go. We don't really know. But the one thing I will say is that's the type of thing that could create that little bit of an issue inside the clubhouse. It's just the distractions. Whether or not you're one of these people that want to buy into them, I don't really care. They're a real thing. We deal with distractions in our everyday lives at work. At least I do. I don't know about you guys, but I would think just about all of us do. And if somebody's got a little something going on and they bring that to work with them, it's kind of detrimental to a lot of folks. So yeah, I hate to say it, I really have enjoyed watching Tim on the South Side when things are going well for him, and he is that spark that they say as Tim goes, the White Sox go. When he's that guy, amazingly good watch for us Sox fans. But he also seems to take that energy in the complete opposite direction. When Tim goes bad, so do the White Sox, and that you can almost feel that energy, through the TV screen or in person at the game when it's not going well. He's kind of dragging some folks down with him, and I don't know if that's true or not, but it sure seems that way. So yeah, I hate to say it, but I would not be upset if he went somewhere else. I would have loved to see him stay here on the South Side, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
We had talked about this in the offseason that we thought it might be a good thing to move him in the offseason before the season even started. And, we're talking about this now, the trade deadline, and he's finally started hitting again. Something just popped into my mind while you were sitting there talking about everybody else having problems. I will say this, that if I did 1 out of 5 things that my boss asked me to do for 3 months, I wouldn't have a job.
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying, like you're betting 200 for,
yeah, kicking
months.
and throwing the ball all over the field.
Yeah. I mean, if you're realistically doing 25% of your job for months on end, I mean, really, you shouldn't expect to, have that kind of support for that long. And the fact that they stood behind him as long as they did, he can say that the White Sox didn't support him in his outside endeavors all he wants, but I mean, realistically, when you're not, putting up the numbers, like who do you have to complain to?
I was not too happy with some of his comments in the preseason to Chuck Garfien about, and I don't want to take it completely out of context, but the vibe with fans, he wasn't happy of the negativity, and there wasn't enough positivity, and he kind of blamed Chuck for some of that, and
yeah, it's Chuck's fault.
There wasn't a lot to get excited about last year. They underperformed last year. Individuals underperformed. The team underperformed. Like, why can't fans expect more, especially during this supposed contention window? Waiting, for this to pop finally, waiting to actually get a playoff series win. I'm sorry, like, we have all the right to hold some of these players and the team accountable and be negative and be aggravated and want Jerry to sell and all the other banners and stuff that was going on. Right. I'm sorry, that just didn't sit well with me.
That's
no,
fair.
and I may not sign his paycheck, but it's my dollars that are going into that paycheck. My money that's spent on White Sox gear and tickets and concessions and all these things that I expect a better product.
I pay
So
your salary.
like I said, I don't sign your check. I don't exactly pay your salary, but part of my money does. And with the expense of a game these days, I'd rather not hear about your off-field drama. I'd rather just see you go out there and play baseball the way you say you can, and the way we've seen.
Oh yeah, he thinks he's the best. He thinks he's one of the best to do it. He definitely has the confidence. That's for sure. If you read some of his recent quotes, Merkin had an article right around the All-Star break. I mean, he thinks he's just one swing away, and Grifol has kept him in that 2 spot, and he's performed a little bit better since the break, but not what we want. Not at the level that we were expecting.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, if he played how he's playing right now, if he had been doing this all year long, I mean, obviously 378 batting average, but you know, I mean, had he been, hitting like 280, 290,
Oh,
even
sure.
even
Yeah.
if it was all singles, I would not
Yeah, this
be.
conversation will be much different.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't be super thrilled if it was all singles, but I mean, you certainly take that over what we got for the first couple
To
months.
get that kind of production at the top of a lineup consistently like that, it would make a huge difference. It would make a huge difference.
Moving along, I figured I'd keep the guys who are position players. I keep them up front. The other guy that I was thinking about as a definite possibility of somebody that you could unload would be Yasmani Grandal, and you've got he's an unrestricted free agent after this year, so he's got nothing holding him here. There's the option of getting Carlos Perez some at bats, and trying to see what some of the young guys possibly have in this time period. I assume that both of you would be willing to part with a Yasmani Grandal.
Oh yeah. Um, I've been pleasantly surprised at times, and there was maybe a lion's share of the season there that, especially before break, where it's like, wow, he's got some power. Those legs are strong, but it's the writing's on the wall. He's not going to be in a Sox uniform after this season, and yeah, we need to start looking at what we have, and I hope that when we do acquire, some talent from these trades, that we are looking at catcher depth, but yeah, I don't know what you're going to get from him, at all. You probably might get and I don't want to say a project, but
Yeah, no, 100%.
some kind of depth piece.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
usually he's a
I'm sorry.
catcher, so you're not, you saw what happened with Wilson Contreras last year with the Cubs, and he was actually, like he had a pretty decent bat last year. Granted, his defense is, worse than Grandal by quite a bit, but they didn't even move him. They just hung on to him despite what he was getting paid because they didn't get what they wanted. So go ahead, Danny. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was just gonna say, the thing about Yasmani is like, like you guys are saying that you're probably not gonna get a lot, but at the same time, there's no way that he's gonna be back next year. So why not take whatever you can get at this particular moment? Just because we know there's nothing's happening this season. Maybe you get lucky. Maybe you do find that diamond in the rough. Maybe you get a guy who, becomes a depth piece with that quad A player that can bounce back and forth for an injured team. Those guys can still be useful. You know what I mean? You're not going to get some superstar stud for Yasmani Grandal, but why not get something, anything? We're at that point right now. At least I feel we're at that point right now. This is a 19 games under 500 White Sox team. There's no reason to hold on to these guys who are going to be shipping out at the end of the season. There's zero reason, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he could certainly be one of those guys that's like maybe you DH him, because moving a catcher into a rotation late in the season is probably not the best thing to do. So he'd probably be a backup catcher, but primary like kind of DH guy for somebody that didn't have necessarily that. And to be honest, I just kind of threw him on the list because I was like, whatever. I mean, I was sitting there looking through the depth chart. I was like, who else are we going to get rid of? That's a position player. I mean, at this point, I'd say that like him and TA and just
what about Elvis Andrews?
That's what I was just going to bring him up, and like to me, he's like a DFA candidate at this point because realistically, you didn't pay him a ton, and you're not getting a ton. He's not really, his legs are old. He's lost a step. He's not hitting all that well, and this veteran leadership thing, the mentors thing that they that they tried to push in like 2016, 17, of bringing in like these quality, veteran leadership nonsense. It clearly has not made one bit of difference. And they said last year, oh well, he showed up and he was telling everybody what's what, and nothing happened last year either. So,
Yeah.
and that was when he was giving you offense. This year he's not giving you any offense, and now you've got Lenine Sosa, who's just sitting there playing in AAA, hitting 300. He's got 13 home runs and playing well, and he's stuck there.
Yeah.
You brought up, Jose Rodriguez. He pinch ran once and then played an inning at second base. So you didn't do anything with him, and I understand you needed an infielder, and he was on the 40-man, but what was the problem with giving him a start or two? Like, there's literally no reason to not at least give him a start and see what you get out of him.
I think even La Russa gave Sosa a start last season when it was kind of a similar situation of, you're going to have to earn it. I'm just not putting you in there just to, for you to. I think Sosa at least had one start before he quickly went back down.
Yep.
Right. And if he comes up here and he plays and he gives you exactly what Elvis Andrus is giving you right now, what's the hurt in that? You know what I mean? You started a clock on a guy who's in AA for basically nothing, for no reason, and you gave an achy, veteran who's playing out of position all the opportunities in the world to try to figure it out after months of showing that he's not only regressed to his career norms but even below. Why not give the young guy an opportunity to see some, again, we're talking about the development doesn't stop once you get to the MLB level. You continue to develop, and I don't see why you would do that to that guy. You took a hot bat out of AA and you cooled it off, and he went back down to AA, and he stayed cool for a few games a week before he started to hit the ball again. And that's what happens. You sit these guys down, they kind of lose their feel. And we've seen it over and over again. The White Sox just seem to be that team that has a penchant for doing that to these young players.
Well, I mean, Elvis, he got outperformed by Romy Gonzalez until he hurt his shoulder. And, you made it a priority to make sure that Elvis Andrus was getting reps, despite the fact that Zach Remillard came up and outperformed Elvis Andrus. And then you bring up Jose Rodriguez, and you refuse to play him because you need to get Elvis Andrus reps. Of course you do, because his 215 average and like 300 300 slug is certainly worth making sure that you get him at bats. I mean, pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, that's where I'd like to really question like Pedro Grifol of whose decision was that? Was that above you? Was that the front office saying don't rush these young guys, keep playing Andrus, or was that Pedro Grifol just, I don't know any better, I'm gonna, out of respect, I'm gonna keep giving this to Elvis Andrus, and like that's his job to lose, and I'm gonna keep going back to him. That's what's odd to me.
Yeah, very bizarre.
Your guess is as good as mine, but that's been something that we have kind of floated a little bit around here.
So earlier today, I was watching that show with Chris Russo, Mad Dog, on MLB Network, and it was mentioned by him and his co-host both that the Dodgers could use Lucas Giolito, and he was specifically pinpointed as the guy that the Dodgers need. So, you talk about a trade partner. This seems to be the one that everybody's got penciled in, is that Giolito's going to the Dodgers. He's an LA guy, Harvard, Westlake, blah, 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 really wants to be in LA. His family's in LA. His whole family's worked in Hollywood. This is where he's going to end up. So he's a unrestricted free agent after this season. So you are, and we've known for years that he's going to the free agent market. There was never ever a question. He was the player, the union rep for the team. And, he could not stay in good standing with the union and not go to free agency. So it was a foregone conclusion. They picked the right guy. He's like, I want to make my money. I'm going to go out there and make my money. So that's definitely happening. In his last 10, he's 3-2 with a 3.59 ERA. He's got 67 Ks to 23 walks. In July, minus that Mets clunker where he was clearly being a tryhard. He's got a 2 ERA with 18 Ks versus 8 walks. So his stats have gone up. He's looked like a better pitcher. I see absolutely zero chance he's with this team next week. I would assume.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you, Ian. I mean, everything that I have read, and on off days like on Monday, and moments when I can, I mean, I consume as much as I possibly can. In terms of right now, just who's linked to who and what team. Everything is LA. Everything, it's almost so obvious. I have heard maybe Tampa kind of comes in and plays spoiler. Of course, there could be other teams that get nuts and crazy. Yeah, Reds for sure. But LA, yeah, it just almost makes too much sense. And with LA's farm system and what they've got to and I don't know what you're going to get from just Lucas Giolito. That's where that whole package thing comes into play, because LA could also use Tim Anderson. They might be able to use a reliever like Graveman with some of the issues that they've got going on with arms. I mean, they've got some catchers in their system. They've got some pitching. They've got some infielders. What are they willing to? They're going to be aggressive. We've heard they're going to be aggressive at the deadline. What are they willing to give up? And I think Gio is a guy that they can absolutely extend as well. This isn't just a rental.
Yeah, I mean, if it was to the Dodgers, they could certainly work something out.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with any of that. But as a White Sox fan, I was almost kind of hoping more for a trade partner in the Reds, being that the Reds, playing as well as they are, have some starting pitching issues, and they have a ton of young infielders that could be of impact. And it was even as late as just earlier today, where they're talking about with the emergence of CES and Ellie De La Cruz and some of the other young guys that they have coming up through their system, are already up with the majors. They've got this plethora of just infielders, and they're willing to part ways with Jonathan India, excuse me. Who, yeah, he's had a little bit of struggles the last year and a half or so after being the rookie of the year. But the White Sox could use any one of the number of young infielders that they could get, and I think if you package it right, you might be able to get that that help in return. But again, it's going to be difficult to appeal to Lucas Giolito and the White Sox the way the Dodgers could.
I think well, see, here's the thing is with the Reds, is that you have Jonathan India, who has no spot because they have the mentioned guys that the guys that you were talking about. You've got your guys at every single infield position are guys that you are, they're homegrown guys, and you develop them. And, Jonathan India had a rough year last year. He was playing well this year until rumors started swirling about trades, because, they had Ellie De La Cruz coming and Encarnacion Strand, and they already had the guy at first. His name escapes me at the moment, and they had the guy at the other guy at second base, and so he's left there. And you also have multiple guys. Their top prospect, Noel V. Marte, same thing. Like, they can't find places for all of these guys, and if they do, I mean, they're going to have to start throwing them in the outfield. And they have to get rid of some of them, and the guy that stands out is the guy that they could get rid of is Jonathan India, because he's coming up to arbitration years, and his salary is going to start going up. So they're going to have to get rid of him. And I don't know whether you have to, say give him Giolito and then say package a, some relief pitching with him as well, to up the amount of, stuff that you're giving them so you could get something of worth back. But I don't know. That seems like a pretty decent, because the thing that you're going to get from the Dodgers is that you're going to get guys that you haven't seen in the major leagues yet, or that you've seen that have popped up really quick and then been sent back down and didn't do all that well. Now, would you rather that, or would you rather pick up Jonathan India, who's, rookie of the year, blah, blah. Who cares about rookie of the year? It doesn't really mean a whole lot to me personally. But the fact that he puts up some power numbers, puts up average, plays a good second base, he's got some speed, and he's looked at as a positive, if you check out his social media at all, like he's always out and about, hanging out with the fans and signing autographs and just being a cool guy and doing charity things, for children's cancer and just doing all this great stuff. And he plays baseball.
Well, do you think, are the Reds just as likely to extend Gio than the Dodgers? I don't know about that. So that might play in the decision, right?
Might, yeah.
If we can extend this guy, we're willing to give up a little bit more. And that's where the packaging comes in. Yeah, that's an interesting sell, though, on India.
Well, the other side of that coin is, I don't know what the White Sox front office is thinking, but is there the possibility that the White Sox front office is saying, we don't really need Jonathan India because we've got guys like Lenyn Sosa, and we've got Romy Gonzalez, and we've got Colson Montgomery, and we've got our own young infielders in the system that we can go ahead and develop and bring up.
I don't disagree with that, but my point is when was the last time that we complained about having too many good baseball players? I can't think of a time, and especially at second base. We haven't had a second baseman since Tadahito Iguchi, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, as sad as that is. I mean, let me say I'm sorry. I'm disrespecting Nick Madrigal here, but I mean, like the Mr. 3000.
Yeah.
He played okay, but he was always injured. To be fair, and he there were certain parts of his game.
Double-digit dingers. He was going to hit double-digit dingers.
Yes, he was. Yes,
till he moved off
in his career. In his career,
he's the next Nellie Fox.
Yeah. So moving along, Lance Lynn has a 2024 $18 million club option. In June and July, you are looking at a 5.66 ERA with a 5.32 FIP. And here's the weird one. The 3.74 xFIP. So the expected fielder independent pitching is significantly less than his fielder independent pitching and his ERA. So has the defense really, clearly the defense has really, really let him down, and they should have been making more plays for him. But regardless, they didn't. Versus right-handed hitting, he is pitching a stellar 203, 643 OPS. Versus left-handed hitting, a less than stellar 338 average and 1,055 OPS. So the way it looks is you just literally cannot pitch him against left-handed hitting. And I mean that's the full season. Like I guess I didn't look at the splits to see where he is in June and July versus left-handed hitting, but seeing as he's still got a 5.66 ERA, it can't have improved that much. What are you going to get for a Lance Lynn?
You'll get something. I think teams like I've heard the Braves are interested, the Texas Rangers. I think even the Reds might be interested as a guy that look he doesn't have to shoulder a rotation. He's going to provide some veteran stability. He strikes guys out, but he gives up home runs. But he has a game like Seattle, and you could have teams saying, whoa, to know that could be a possibility.
True.
Maybe we just set him up for success, and we've got some defense. I mean, he had a game a couple days ago where Elvis Andrus just did not do him any favors in the first inning, and that's when he gave up a bunch of home runs to the Twins. I think it was the game one of the series. You'll get something from him, but I don't. Again, like I don't think it's gonna wow us at this point, but teams need pitching. The teams that are in contention will try to gobble up what they can, but I think they will hold on to their goods closely for a Lance Lynn, but it's still worth trying to move him.
Did I mention his veteran leadership? So after your two starters, because I had thought at one point that Clevenger would probably be gone at the trade deadline, but he has not returned. He's been doing bullpens recently this last week, and I heard that he looked okay, but who knows when he'll actually return. It's certainly not going to be before the All-Star break, or even if it is, nobody's going to go, that's what I need. I need a guy who is accused of doing not nice things and goes 5 innings max, allowing 3 or 4 runs and getting to 100 pitches. I don't see that being a thing. I don't think, they're going to get rid of Kopech. We'll talk about Cease in a moment.
Can I interrupt you for a second,
Sure.
Ian? You had asked when did we think this thing went off the rails? It might have been when Clevenger was signed, and we signed him white hot, like he was Mr. Danger. We needed to have this guy in our rotation, and it just after that, it was like, really? That was your first big signing, Mike Clevenger? And then everything else went downhill from there.
I will tell you, most of White Sox Twitter probably believes that's the moment because, there was a lot of poo-pooing on that move. Albeit most of it was because of the alleged, offenses.
Initially, I would say it was the money. I was like, wow, you're going to give him that kind of money? And there's a lot of question marks. And then everything else started to come out.
I mean, the way I
Right.
looked at it is that, the Yankees gave Kluber more than that coming off of, not pitching for a year. And, he was a year removed from Tommy John. So I was like, for what you're going to get for a 5th starter that's going to give you decent amount of innings, I didn't really balk at the money. And
No, we
is,
balked at the fact is that he was going to have to deal with a pitch clock. And
well,
then he was
yeah,
doing his
that
little dance out
his
there.
little shuffle, which I don't have. I wish I still had that. I probably have it somewhere. But like Ethan Katz was, Clevenger was Ethan Katz's guy. He's the guy that wanted him signed. Keenan Middleton signed here because of Clevenger. So, it could be the reason that it went off the rails, but I don't know if that's really what sent this team off the rails, then we got bigger issues.
There's bigger issues. There really are.
There's bigger issues, yeah. So bullpen guys. Joe Kelly, you got a $9.5 million club option for next year. Graveman, you got an $8 million that you definitely owe him. Aaron Bummer, $5.5 million next year. And then you got Club in 25 and 26 for 7.25 and 7.5. And then you've got Raylo and Keenan Middleton are both unrestricted free agents next year. Would you be? I wouldn't be shocked if every single one of those guys was gone.
Yeah, I would say Graveman and Middleton probably are at the top of my list of like who I would see would be gone. Kelly, I mean, Kelly was on a tear there, wasn't he? I mean, he looked pretty dangerous.
He'll get back there too.
Um, and so if a team is ready to take that risk, I think Kelly could be up there too. So you'll see relievers gone. Yeah, it could be all of them. Would it be difficult to take on all of the bummer stuff, and his contract and everything? Perhaps, but uh, he's looked in moments recently. He's looked pretty good, and he's a lefty, and he comes from a different angle. And I don't know. We've seen guys leave our ball club, and then just completely turn things around. When they get in a different system. So relievers, in my mind, we don't need to have the most expensive bullpen in all of baseball. That's those are easy arms to sign, and that's why they're signed, right? Like they emerge.
Right.
It happens. You can get those guys. Don't have to have the most expensive bullpen. So Middleton's been impressive. I've liked Santos, but I could see Middleton and Graveman gone.
Yeah, and you bring up those guys that leave the White Sox and become someone else, and I think Bummer is a pretty good candidate for that. He's that guy that all the numbers and all the peripherals suggest that he should be he should have much better outcomes when he sees the field. But this guy gets dinked and doinked all over the field. He doesn't get a whole lot of help from the defense when that's happening, and things just kind of go south for him really quickly. And we saw the good side of Bummer a few years ago, and he just hasn't been able to be that guy. But I could see maybe another organization, a change of scenery for him, where if there's a minor tweak somewhere that the White Sox haven't figured out, where he turns into some you know just amazing bullpen superstar. But again, like Nick says, I think any one of those guys could be gone. I think Raylo is a really big candidate to be dealt as well too. There's a lot of teams out there that could use a guy who could not only go out there and give you solid pitching, but can give you multiple innings, and that's really big when you're talking about a postseason run.
Yep, I'll agree with that. And I mean, imagine if you put Aaron Bummer in front of a team that actually has infield defense. That would be amazing. That would improve his results. Immediately. He could go out there and throw exactly how he's been throwing with the White Sox, and he'd probably have a one-run better ERA just immediately right out of the gate. So possible guys that I had kind of tabbed here, and we'll start with pitching first. I had Cease. I personally, he's who you're going to get value for, clearly, because you've got, he's in, next year's as ARB2, and then you got his ARB3, and then he's an unrestricted free agent in 26. So you still have 2 years of control, and you're going to be certainly going to be paying a reasonable amount of money for what you're going to get results wise. But do you want to give that up?
Well, I don't think they and absolutely they are not going to resign Dylan Cease.
No.
So that's clear. I look at it almost like as in a Jose Quintana situation. If they didn't move him in the offseason of 2016, they held on to him, and then he got moved, of course, in 2017. And we're dealing with different talent levels, but there was obviously a desire for Jose Quintana. Um, you know, Again, if somebody gets crazy at this deadline and offers you something that you just can't resist, but I see Dylan Cease staying in a White Sox uniform, and maybe something happens in the off season, perhaps.
Danny?
I'm kind of on the fence about that. Again, as a fan, I would love to see him dealt at this time of year. If he's going to be dealt, and we all know he's never, like Nick says, his agent is not one that the White Sox like to deal with on a regular basis. If he continues to pitch well, he's going to command a high dollar contract when it comes time for that. Um, I would like to see him be dealt with more time left on that contract and get the bigger package. But again, like Nick says, a team's going to have to get crazy to be able to kind of pry him away from the White Sox at this particular point. And it just depends on who's willing to do that. I could very well see it happening in the offseason as well. I just hope that if the White Sox have zero intention on signing him, that they would indeed, part ways with him for a return that they can at least be, somewhat proud of.
Yep, I agree with that. You know, I don't personally want him gone, but I know he's not going to get signed.
No,
So it's
right.
it's kind of one of those things that if you think that this team is going to win next year or the year after that, you're probably A, delusional, but B, you're going to keep him around. Um, so here's, and this is another one of those things. One of the other four guys from that deal, Eloy, 24, $13 million. And then you get club options in 25 and 26 for 16 and a half and 18 and a half. And, we've gotten our fair share of like some good results out of him, but you've also, he's also been injured more often than not. So, if somebody approaches you and says, hey, we want that, we need somebody that's willing to, play some outfield and DH some, that's got a big bat. Is Eloy available? I don't know who's going to ask for him because the guy's always hurt. But, you never know.
That's the kicker.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't know what the White Sox are going to do with Eloy Jimenez. He wants one thing. He wants to be your right fielder. He does not want the DH position. He's talked about that. That was a whole focus in the offseason and even into the season. I mean, he has come out and publicly said it. And I just don't think his body can hold up for you to rely on him in the outfield, in right field. And I don't even think he's that great of a defender. But that's the White Sox way. They don't really prioritize defense at all. They've been trying to prioritize the bat. So you're going to continually put him out right now for his bat. And I don't know if it's a showcase type of thing of we got to show what teams could possibly be getting with this guy and his bat. That's why we're not going to put him on the IL. I have no idea, but that one would be interesting because I don't know what direction the White Sox go with him. Is he really going to be your just DH or is he going to be your right fielder? They might have a situation on their hands of you're going to give me this. Well, you're kind of you're helping us get rid of a problem, so to speak. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the guy, like I said, guy's always injured. Like I don't expect to get a ton for him, but the thing is that the upside's so huge.
Yeah.
If you finally get that healthy season, you could certainly get 45 RBIs, a 315 average, and 140 RBIs.
Right.
I mean, look at Luis Robert Jr. I mean, we're seeing that. I mean, he is healthy. He's playing consistently. Yeah. He's playing confidently, and he's just completely unlocked it. And that's really what I thought we were going to get, kind of a lightning and thunder, Eloy and Luis Robert Jr. This season. They were both going to be healthy, and they were just going to take off. So you look at Robert, and you're like, well, wait a second. Is next year going to be the year that Jimenez stays healthy? It took Robert a couple of years. That's a big if.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. But then my only thought is, we talked about those guys who might be that cancer. And I'm not saying that Eloy is, because obviously Eloy, when he's healthy and doing well, he's a ham for the camera and he's joking around and slapping guys and doing all, he's the next closest thing to Yolmer Sanchez on this team. You know what I mean? Where he brought that kind of fun energy. But at the same time, you got to wonder that, maybe behind closed doors, a guy who is, at best being platooned in the outfield, and he is so publicly out there about wanting to play, is there some sort of distraction in the clubhouse. And I don't really know, but it's a possibility. I've been on those teams again where, not saying it's at the professional level, but you got that one guy. He's like, man, I should be out there playing every day, and he's talking, and he's not being quiet about it. I've been on those teams, and
Yep.
it creates a bit of a vibe, not the best. So I don't really know if that's what's going on, but I think it's a possibility. And like Nick says, if the White Sox decide that's the direction they want to go in, maybe we do see finally a healthy Eloy and Robert doing their thing, because that's what we've hoped for. We were hoping for these two young guys who were supposed to be, bangers, and we're going to go out and hit 300 and hit a bunch of home runs and drive in, 100 RBIs every year. We thought, we saw the Jose Abreu era coming to an end at some point, and these guys were going to be the new era being ushered in, and it just hasn't quite worked out that way. So I don't know where the White Sox heads are at on that either. But yeah, definitely something to kind of keep an eye on here shortly. But again, what do you get back in? What do you get in return? Because
Yeah.
he hasn't seen the field enough.
What they're going to be asking for is going to be more than somebody's going to be willing to give, because they're going to be like, well, yeah, I know that possibility is there that he's going to hit 40 home runs, but I also know that there's the possibility that he's only going to play in 60 games, So, so Nick, what are you doing about Jake Berger when this trade line comes up?
If you're talking about selling high on somebody, I mean, this is the guy to do it. I made a pitch with Pat actually on our most recent Good Guys Talk Back, and I might have talked about it on Locked On, and just in a crazy way of how the White Sox do things. I'm convinced that if Moncada does get healthy and he is going to continue to play this year, they're not going to do a surgery. They're going to just put Moncada right back at third. They've invested a lot of money in Yohan Moncada. I don't think he's being moved. I don't think anybody's taking on that money. I think he's going to go right back and be your third baseman. I don't think Jake Berger is a second baseman. He can play first. He can DH. But you clearly need that bat. You have to look at yourself in the mirror as an organization and say, what direction, where do we see Jake Berger with his ball club moving forward in 2024 and beyond? And if it is not, I think, in a regular starting role, then you entertain offers. And then that is a package with some team that will say, hey, we need a third baseman. We need a guy that's going to slug like Jake Berger. We've got a spot for him consistently. The Sox have a problem. They absolutely have a problem. Here's a guy that didn't even break camp, and look what he's doing. I mean, he needs some discipline at the plate, like a lot of other players on this team, but what he's been able to do in terms of power is unreal. But he's getting consistent playing time, and that's what he has always said. He had a flare last year where he went on a run, and he's like, I'm playing regularly. It's unlocked for me. And that's what's happening right now. And it's good to see. I love Jake Berger. I love the story. I've just always felt bad because he is stuck. And then all the injuries and everything. I like seeing him. And, honestly, I'd rather see Jake Berger out there, every single game the rest of the year and what he can do. But if you've got a team asking about Jake Berger and you're going to stick with Yohan Moncada, well, then please let Jake Berger go and get something for him right now while he's hot.
I don't think he's necessarily even really hot. I think it's just, I think that's kind of like
for him though.
What
like
his
he's
deal
at like
is,
his, he's like at his. Is it going to get any better for Jake Berger right now?
I mean, value wise, I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's going to be here through 2029. So, I mean, it's not like you don't have time. My main worry here is, Yohan Moncada is not going anywhere with what the money that he's owed. Unlike everybody else, he doesn't have club options. He's got guaranteed money. So
yeah, the thing with Yohan though is maybe the back is unrepairable and they just part ways. But other than that,
entirely
nobody's
possible.
taking that money.
But the glove is, Yohan's glove compared to Berger, like there's not really a comparison there. I mean, Yohan's a much better fielder, And at his peak, he is a better player than he's worth more than Berger. Like Berger, I think right now is at like a 106 WRC plus, and he's been playing mostly all the time, and that's what you're getting out of him. Yeah, I think that we've talked. Me and Danny have talked about this before, where it's like hitting's contagious. We've everybody's heard that hitting's contagious, and I think that Jake Berger is probably suffering from trying to not necessarily shoulder the load, but I mean all these guys are probably shouldering the load together, where there's just the only person hitting right now is Luis Robert, really. Like hitting with any consistency. Yeah. I mean, I guess Benintendi's been pretty good, and now TA's finally starting to come along. But when you got like 4 black holes in your lineup,
yeah, you need more than 2 or 3 guys putting it together.
There's a lot of folks that are trying to put it on their shoulder. There's a lot of pressure, and of course, the last month has been nothing but, all right, who's going to be gone at the deadline? Is this your last few weeks, few months, last month in a White Sox uniform? And that's got to weigh on you. I can't imagine that.
Like, do you think that puts more pressure on these guys to perform in the hopes that they can maybe find themselves on a contender and actually be part of a winning culture? Do you think that creates that pressure for them?
You could create the scenario for both ways, right? I mean, I think you're trying to perform either way. At least I hope you would, for your current ball club to try to get out of this thing that you're in and compete in a winnable division. I mean, that's kind of not the case right now, but it was about a month ago. And you're also trying to raise your stock. Like maybe maybe if I'm playing well, I might be able to get another shot on a contender somewhere, and I can kind of give my career a bit of a boost, a 2.0. Yeah, that's a man. Talk about like different paths and how you'd have to compartmentalize all that stuff, and that's difficult.
And all of this is, here we are. We're sitting here, a bunch of 40 somethings talking about this. Well, I don't know, Nick's look like he's what are you, like 28, 29?
I'm 42.
Oh, look at you.
Okay. Yeah. So, and we're talking about kids who are 24, 25, 26 years old, to kind of have these life decisions put out in front of them. I would assume that there is some pressure there, whether it's like Nick says, whether you're trying to perform for your current team or trying to perform to better your career, whether it's with your current team or somewhere else. So yeah, difficult all the way around with this White Sox team.
I mean, I think we could all agree there is no way we thought we'd be having this conversation here on July 24th, 2023. No way.
No, we were optimistic, Ian and I. We do our little, predictions show every year at the start of the season, and neither one of us really predicted them to go out and win like 90 games or anything crazy like that. But we did both predict them to be at least a little bit over 500. We didn't expect to be sitting here 19 under right now.
Well, speaking of putting the weight of the world on Atlas's shoulders and putting pressure on somebody.
Oh boy.
We see you, Nick. And I have a question for you.
Yep.
I actually it's kind of a demand. I need you to make me feel better about the White Sox. What are you going to do to make me feel better about the rest of this year for the White Sox?
Well, I know I felt better, in December of 2016 when they finally made a choice. They finally picked a direction. They finally picked a path, and they went towards that path. I remember being at Sox Fest in January 2017, and there was a buzz. There was electricity because of what we got back for, Chris Sale and Adam Eaton and what looked like the path we were headed in. Like we finally got something, and we've got a plan, it looked like. And Rick Hahn, a standing ovation, and Ricky Renteria was, just breathing fire of what this team is going to be like, which, I miss Ricky Renteria. But anyway, I think once a decision is made, and there's going to probably be a lot of decisions made, coming up to this trade deadline, I think then it's like, okay, the Band-Aid's off. Like we ripped it off, and like we now are going this way. The reality of it is it didn't work. It didn't pan out the way we thought it was going to pan out. So this is what we have. And this is what we're going to try to do once again. And I'm going to look at guys that are going to be on this team in 2024, or at least we think are going to be on this team. Like I had mentioned, Michael Kopech, and I think Dylan Cease will be on this team in 2024, and Andrew Benintendi, Andrew Vaughn, Luis Robert Jr. I think they will all be with us. I do think they'll hold on to Eloy Jimenez, and you just have to say, I think this division can be winnable, or at least be, you can compete in it next year. I don't know anything beyond that. It depends on what they decide to do in the off season. I would love to see a GM change. I would love for Hahn to finally just be gone, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're with Pedro Grifol next year. How I would sell it is, we've made a choice. We've picked where we are headed, and we're not lying to ourselves anymore. We're not going to lie to you. It stings, it hurts. We didn't want to admit it, but here we are. It didn't work out, and we're moving forward. I guess like some clarity of the truth of what's happening with this team and organization, and not the word salad that Hahn will give us maybe on Tuesday because it's a homestand. Let's just be honest here about what's going on, and you'll see it, I think, with the moves.
Yeah, I'd say that's you didn't fix it for me, but I think that's certainly some valid points there, and certainly things that can at least give some bit of comfort to people that have to watch this nonsense, because it's been a brutal watch.
It's been a brutal watch because for me, I had these high expectations, and I think everybody did. And I held on to these expectations in a delusional way longer than I probably should have, because of what was on paper and because it had to be better than last year. And I wanted to believe in everything that Pedro Grifol said, and all the off-season stuff, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and this is how we're preparing for that. And it just wasn't working. And he said, well, it takes time. Well, it's now July. How much time do you need? It's clearly something that can't work. And that's why it's been so absolutely painful, because you're also now seeing something die, that you had these grand hopes for, of this core, this nucleus, this team that was built beginning in December of 2016. It never even really had a chance. And you're wrestling with that while watching this team fail in 2023. Part of me is also now seeing we're going backwards now, and we're kind of going to have to start a little bit from the ground floor. So two parts of you are dying.
I will say, like if the chemistry
not
of the,
really making us feel better.
I mean,
I'm just trying to give you
this second part. You could have held off on that part.
Right.
But I will say, like I don't, how when teams sell off players and then they go on a run anyway, even though that they are quote unquote gutted, from their best players. I don't necessarily doubt that the White Sox couldn't do that and completely tank their draft position.
Well, that would be the White Soxiest of White Sox things.
It really would. But I mean, I could see, next year, with some, and that's one of the things, like when you see Remillard, like you see not necessarily, like there's, bunting with one out in extra innings, probably not like the best idea, but like you see a guy that does the little things generally and really wants to play baseball and wants to be on the White Sox and wants to be successful. And I think that if you have a couple of guys, new blood, guys that didn't have that pre-anointed prophecy about them winning multiple World Series and talk to me after the parade and all this stuff, that maybe you get some guys that are actually hungry up there, and not just guys saying that they want to win the World Series, but guys that genuinely are clawing and fighting to be in Major League Baseball, and are working their way up through the system and have something genuine to prove. That maybe that does turn things around for this team, and maybe that's a little bit more on Pedro Grifal's level.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. He was tasked with this team that they were around for a while. Like, he did not have a lot of say in this roster, and they were set in their ways, and they were not ready to maybe buy into what he was trying to do. Maybe, yeah, to your point, some younger guys, some Zach Remillard type of guys that are eager, they don't have a lot of years in the game. Like, who am I to not listen to this manager who's been in baseball for so many years? And they buy into it, and he can get enough of those guys to collectively buy into it and play a certain way that he wants to play, that others just weren't ready to change their style for him. I could see that trending in the right direction.
Yeah. In the case that, like we spoke about a little bit ago, that a Tim Anderson is dealt. Jake Berger, you're selling high on him. You're gonna, now you have to play Zach Remillard. You've got to bring in guys like Lenin Sosa and Romy Gonzalez, depending on what it is you get in return, obviously, for some of these deals. But these are the names that we know we have in the system right now. My only concern is if Nick says that we should hang our hopes on we're finally peeling that band-aid off and going in a direction per se. My only concern with that is I absolutely need to see an Elvis Andrus DFA at that point, because I really would love to see a full infield of these young guys that maybe will buy in to the Pedro Grifal White Sox.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what I'm hoping for, Danny. Yeah, that's absolutely what I'm hoping for. Is like, we're cutting the fat, we're running lean, and it might not be pretty right now, but we're getting a lot of looks at guys, and we're just being brutally honest. Stop lying. Stop the charade of, we think we're a championship level team. Stop all of that. Just call it what it is right now, and let us see it, warts and all, and let it develop. It's not absolutely not what we wanted at all, not even close. But you just kind of have to make that. The sooner you make that decision, I think, then you can start the process of moving forward.
Yeah, well said.
All right, Nick. Well, I'd like to after that, absolutely, you made us feel good, and then you made us feel terrible, and now I'm gonna say
thank you.
Thanks for coming on tonight.
Set me up to
always
knock me
awesome
down.
to have you on. I appreciate I appreciate everything you do. Let us know. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. It is an absolute treat, really, to talk with you guys, and you've been so great, coming on, Good Guys Talk Back and Locked On, and thank you for everything that you guys do for the White Sox fan base, and it's just been a real joy just getting to know both of you over the last several years. I know I can always check in and rely on you guys, and I think, again, in these tough times, it's fun to just have people that try to produce regular White Sox content. You can, you rub shoulders with people that are going through the same kind of stuff. So thank you guys so much. This was a real treat. I'm on Twitter or on X, whatever we're calling it these days, at Nick_GGTB. I have not moved on to Blue Sky. I don't know if I'm even going to be doing that.
Threads?
Yeah, Threads. Yeah, sure. I don't know. Right now, I'm still on this Twitter X thing. But for podcast content, Good Guys Talk Back. It's a weekly podcast with my good friend Pat Hester. We've got a YouTube channel. You find the audio absolutely everywhere. We're in our 5th season of doing that. And then Locked On Sox is a daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Again, YouTube channel. You can subscribe, and the audio is available absolutely everywhere.
Awesome. Well, go and call it for the evening. Thanks to everybody that's listening. At Daily White Sox on Twitter. You can find White Sox Daily on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube, where we are streaming right now. We are also twitch.tv/White Sox Daily. WhiteSoxDaily.substack.com. You can find some written stuff, mostly by Dan Victor as of late. I am Ian Eskridge at iEskridge on Twitter. Danny Miller at Danny Miller WSD on Twitter. For myself and my co-host, we thank you for hanging out and listening, and thanks for your time, and we will see you guys next week. Have a great night. Thanks. Bye.